My fellow Amazonians, good morning. This is Dr. Cho Ayaba. This is my daily briefing on the 11th of July 2024. First, I'll begin with greetings to each and every one of you, and God bless each and every one of you. And thank you for your continuous sacrifices towards the attainment of our goal of full independence and freedom for our country. I begin today with reacting to a circulation. There was an audio message circulated yesterday declaring that Wednesdays will be days of lockdown in solidarity with Amazonian prisoners of war. This is a fake information. This has been circulated by agents of Yaoundé. They are trying to use this propaganda to undermine our different resistance actions and calls. Recall that when we instituted the no yellow color taxi, the first they attacked it, they held demonstrations, and then when they lost the battle, they declared that they are the ones who instituted it. So constantly they make a mockery of themselves. They are confused, they are desperate, and a drowning person would hang on to anything they see, even on a snake, in order to stay afloat. So it's a regime that is gone down like the Titanic, and they are engaged in repeated desperate actions, thinking that they can make a mockery of our resistance. Unfortunately, they are making a mockery of themselves. We have mastered communication. We're in self-defense. We are dealing with several sovereignty projects like a state. And so they must understand that this is a new generation with a new agenda and a new destination. So the way we show solidarity with our prisoners is continuously fight to ensure that the reason for which they went to jail is attained. Historically, days of solidarity have been called with detained compatriots. Sometimes if there is something that happens in jail, a prisoner dies or some other actions, and then we could think of a particular day of solidarity. Every day in Amazonia is a day of solidarity. Mondays are days of solidarity, not only with our prisoners, but also with our IDPs, our refugees, and the families of those who've lost loved ones. Anytime there is authentic communication, whether I agree with it or not, you will hear from me. And that's how you can get authenticity. But any audio message that is sent out there by desperate individuals, you drop them where they belong, the dustbin of history. The other day, I also signed an executive order banning land sales to citizens of Cameroun. This is a very serious issue, my people. I have said this in several outings. In every society, there are three factors of production. You have the land, you have the capital, or you have the labor. The most important factor of production for Amazonians is the land and the labor. And I know that our labor is cheap. Sometimes it's not even desired because the public sector, the private sector, they've all been dismantled. And so we use the labor we have to plow the fields, the land that we have. It has also become an asset for many Amazonians. They can use the land to get immediate capital for investment. And we have also realized that the enemy has made it difficult for transactions between individuals. And so they've intruded into it to certify, to legalize all of these land sales. And we have seen situations where La République colonial DOs and SDOs, the impostor mayors and others have become part and parcel of a cartel that is transferring Amazonian land to Cameroon citizens. They have higher buying power. Even our Biafran compatriots who are in also have higher buying power than us. And I encourage Amazonians to preserve their land. It doesn't mean you cannot sell a piece of land. But you should think seriously, very seriously, because that is the only asset you have that is non-perishable. It increases in value with time. I know there are families that are struggling, and sometimes you really need to sell that piece of land to even have an operation. And so you need to do it. But don't sell your piece of land to a Cameroon citizen. They are deliberately acquiring Amazonian land to alter the demographic dynamics and to be able to use it in the future against us. That's how Zimbabwe almost collapsed. That's what South Africa is going through now. So we must learn from history. Secondly, we have also noticed that there are family fights and quarrels because of land. Powerful individuals, they use colonial elements to acquire family lands and sell them to whosoever. We have introduced ourselves in some. But going forward, all land disputes should be reported to quarterheads. And when they cannot be resolved, they will be reported to our forces or the ATLA, the Liberation Transitional Authorities within your area. And we will deal with it. Any land sale that we see announced, we will investigate it. And if we find that they're violating liberation laws by selling to La République, or powerful individuals within those families are using their power in association with collaborating with the enemy, we will put an injunction on the sale of those lands. Anybody who sells the land to citizen of La République will acquire that land after we gain our total freedom. And there will be consequences on every individual. The other issue I would like to talk about, I think you people must have read some fake newspapers and lawsuits against Norway. I'll focus on Norway because against myself is not something I talk about. Education is critical. And so when you see these things, I know people were worried when they read that, I have been taken to court in the US with the Norwegian Prime Minister. It's a joke, my people. It's a joke. It's almost like the joke I told you about the desperate attempts to institute days of actions to undermine, our critical activities. There are US laws. There are US laws that permit civil lawsuits against individuals who have engaged in sponsoring or what they call abetting acts of international terrorism that occurs on US soil. And I want you to know this. So Section 3 of that law authorizes the federal court jurisdiction, over a civil claim, against any foreign state or for physical injury to a person or property or death that occurs inside the US as a result of international terrorism. And this law is very specific. It only works and functions on the premise that the act of that international terrorism occurs within the United States of America. That's number one. Number two, it does not occur during war. So, and number three, it is perpetrated by a designated organization that has been designated as an international terrorist organization. So these are three conditions you must understand. There is an existing law for civil law claims against individuals or institutions that are perceived to conspire to commit, aid, or abet, acts of international terrorism that causes death, injury to humans or property. It must occur in the United States. That's number one. Number two, the law is also very clear about the fact that the act must have been committed by a designated international terrorist organization. The US usually designates groups as terrorist organization. No Amazonian group has been designated as a terrorist organization. And it must occur not in times of war. So when you read these lawsuits, there are a couple of things that you must understand. And I don't want to get into. I think our spokespersons and individuals have dealt with the different actors and their underlying claim. But as a leader, what I want to talk to you about is for you to see the acts of desperation. First, we didn't exist. First, Ayaba did not exist. Then they gave him a name. He's a terrorist, and then they tried to negotiate with him. You can't be confused. You have to be clear. If you're fighting a war, you want to occupy my land, you have to be clear. When you start showing these things, I see you being desperate. You're looking for help. You put pressure on different countries to transfer me down. I don't know if they can keep me in Yaoundé. Maybe if Norway says tomorrow that they are going to hand me over to them, they'll surely drop me from the sea. They can't lock me in a jail. They can't, except, I don't know. I'm not God, but I hate these people to the point where I don't think they can keep me in a jail. So they will drop me from the sky down into the Atlantic Ocean for me to die immediately. That one they should know. And so when I look at these things, I am not worried. I speak about these things because I know they use misinformation, they use intoxication and propaganda. Their aim is to weaken your resolve. Don't be afraid. If I drop today, you will continue. Kuva dropped. Asonganye dropped. Abombi dropped. Ivo dropped. Efang dropped. Piti dropped. The war is on. This is not a war by Ayaba. It's a war by the Ambazonian people who have become conscious of what is happening to them and have taken a firm stance. So I want you to not to be afraid. This is a season of resistance against a known enemy. Secondly, there is an analysis about Ambazonians having been detained. There is no Ambazonian who has been detained, who has gone to jail out here because they are involved in the struggle. Ambazonians, there are Ambazonians in the United States, including known persons like Mamangang, who are in jail because they violated United States law. They violated US laws. No matter how just your cause is. And I had cited the shipment of weapons into Iran, I think under President Reagan. It was illegal. And the president himself was, I think, investigated for violating US law. Once you are in the United States, you are not allowed without permission to ship any kind of weapons anywhere. Whether for good causes, bad causes, whether you are the president, whether you are the foreign minister, you are not allowed. You do that illegally, you'll be held accountable. That is what has happened to Ambazonians. Everywhere there are laws against money laundering. So if you are in the US or wherever in Europe and you are moving large amount of money that are not declared, that doesn't go through systems that are seen as monitored, then you can be charged for money laundering. It has nothing to do with the war. It has nothing to do with the purpose for which the money was being transferred. So if you are sending funds or money into designated organizations that have been designated as terrorist organizations, you will be violating, the Anti-Terrorism Act. So these are things that, these buffoons, this what I call church and bay lawyers have been going around and propagating, trying to frighten you people. We are not frightened by war tanks. There are 12 of them entered Momo last night, and thousands of forces. We are not frightened by them. I will be frightened by lawsuit. These guys have lost every suit they have filed. Every suit, except the one they filed at the ICJ on their claim to owning Bakassi, because Bakassi is ours. If you review the case laws of the Human Rights Committee and other jurisprudences, you would find that Ambazonians have defeated them. Gorgie versus Cameroun, Albert versus Cameroun, Akwanga versus Cameroun, Titiahonjo versus Cameroun. All of these things, they defeated these enemies. They don't even know how to argue submissions. in one of their submissions at the Human Rights Committee, and that was very laughable. They don't understand law. The premise of individuals jumping jurisdiction. For example, if your rights are violated, then you can decide to move the case to, let's say, the Human Rights Committee under the ICCRP. You can only do that if you've exhausted domestic remedy. And it is very clear that the presence of domestic remedy is not enough to prevent somebody jumping jurisdiction. It must show that it is effective, and that it doesn't last forever. And in most of their submissions, their argument is like being made by people from the street. That's why they don't win any case. So we should not be afraid, my people. If there is anybody to be charged in any court of law, and we've captured these in a manifesto, and I'll read a section to you, which is important. If there is any person in this conflict to be charged, it is not Ambazonia, it is not Dr. Choi Ayaba, it's not any Ambazonian. It's La Republique and their Tanganyis and all those who have worked to murder thousands of Ambazonians. And we captured this in the matters of law and justice. La République du Cameroun, having invaded and occupied the Ambazonian territory in September 1961, and after dissolving all executive and legislative institutions of Ambazonia in the manner of tyrants, has violated the territorial integrity of Ambazonia, has scorned and violated the laws of all people of the world, including but not limited to the right to self-determination enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1514, paragraph 15 of 14 December 1960, that affirms the right of all peoples to their sovereignty. The United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Article 15, which stipulates the Ambazonians' rights to found a nation and name a nation, and UN General Assembly Resolution 26, paragraph 25, subsection 25 of 24 October 1970, that further affirms the right of the Ambazonian people to establish their sovereign and independent state as a mode of expression of their right of self-determination. By its illegal occupation of Ambazonia in 1961, despite democratic protests and legal actions, and declaration of war on the people of Ambazonia on November 30, 2017, against the aspirations of the Ambazonian people to their sovereignty, Cameroon has proven itself as an aggressor and has, by this forceful occupation, enforced her presence by ruthless continuous massacres of thousands of the Ambazonian people and razings of tens of thousands of their homes and hundreds of thousands of towns and villages, thus displacing millions of our people who are currently scattered all over the world and depriving thousands of children of the right to education. So if there is anyone to be brought before a court of law for acts of terrorism, aggression in violation of UN Charter, and acts of deprivation of liberty in illegal incarceration, acts of rendition in kidnapping Ambazonians from foreign countries and illegally transferring them, and acts of trying Ambazonians under military courts as civilians, and crimes against humanity, which includes systematic torture, rape as a weapon of war crimes, which include burning of villages, burning of places, and all what you have, and genocide, the intent to eliminate physically part or whole of our people, has been demonstrated in very clear cases. The intent has been proven in their systematic attack on young Ambazonian males, capturing of commanders, burning of their remains, killing in Gabo, and burning of the remains of young girls who are the future of Ambazonia. So if there is anybody to be arraigned in front of a court of law, it will be Cameroon. But because of the international conspiracy against our people, The court of law is the battlefields across the 13 states of Amazonia. And prevail we have, and we must have hope, and we must be resilient, we must not be afraid. We own that land. They don't. We are more powerful. They aren't.
One of my sister, where they kill her for night, they rape you, then kill her for night. The Santa. She was Presbyterian Church, opposite Presbyterian Church. I recall this way, one will carry him now, who live on for mortuary, where they rape her. They rape you for night. Yes. Go rape her. Yes. I recall this. Michael! Yes. I recall this. Now this is where they take and go. The mortuary. I recall this. Now girl where they rape them for night. When I'm a family sister, where they rape you for night and still kill you.
Alongside other Amazonians in the diaspora?
One of the things we need to ask, and I'm one of those people that was completely not even in line with the propaganda that went through Eric Status being arrested or being questioned. And if you have watched online with what I have done, I will not be sounding so political. You know, people like Kedia, they support a particular platform and a particular ideology. I've been asking several times if Eric Tato was arrested linked to offenses committed or related to the Cameroonian crisis. And many knew very well that it was a vehemently zero, a no. And that those who picked up as an opportunity took it to gain some cheap political points at the level of their paymaster. And that others who have files and envelopes waited or are waiting them in a 2D, some even wrote happily that if the envelope can still come, they are very happy. That's what somebody who works and said they are doing their activism with an Salai law firm said they were happy. If the envelope can come, they will take it honestly and then feel it themselves. But one of the things I have tried to ask is, are Cameroonians really serious about building a judicial system? Why should you be thinking that somebody arrested for offenses committed in the United States should be extradited to Cameroon? Eric Tato was one of those who equally benefited from the COVID incident. If we learn very well that the United States government came out bailing companies that has faced an economic situation during the COVID pandemic. And so Eric Tato is not only alone. I want to tell you that even close relatives of the Nsalai law firms were equally affected. The wife of Nsalai equally benefited from that fund. And sometime last year, he was equally questioned on performing a fake payroll. And performing a fake payroll means violate the US laws and not Cameroonian laws. But since then, we know that Salah is one of the group that is based in the US trying to them counter or pro state politics in Cameroon. He is always trying to prove to his paymaster that he's doing an extremely good work. But should we gain political points when we don't offer anything? That is the reason. Eric Tato was not released because bail, or it is the provision of the law. And you know the law on extradition. Even when you are the worst criminal on earth, they only extradite you. I mean, if Eric was arrested on a Cameroonian case, like Madame Ngang and the rest, they can never be extradited to Cameroon if the judicial system in the United States proves a better system. It's not the kidnapping system that happened with the Naira 9 or those whom we have that were arrested in Lagos. And one of the things we need to know, that the judicial system in Africa is a respecter of the king, the respecter of the crown, and nothing about the rules of institutions. And so we cannot extradite somebody from the United States to Cameroon, where we know that there's a lot of political intimidation, a lot of political gain points, a lot of corruption and embezzlement, where people might even just be condemned for the fact that they don't support a particular political ideology, where people can even be condemned just for the fact that they were hated because they come from a hated tribe, or maybe what we call the Anglophone syndrome in Cameroon. Those are some of the issues when you look at it. We have a lot of people who reside in France. We have others within the European Union. When the EU law system does not permit you to be extradited to your country, I'm talking of what maybe you might have heard within recent times, that somebody like Francois Compaoré was refused to be extradited to Burkina Faso because the EU law looks at it that his case might be more political than judicial. And so if the EU law system in that standard could say this person should not be extradited to Burkina Faso, why should Cameroon be thinking that every time a Cameroonian that is hated by the political regime that has taken Cameroon hostage for the past 60 years should instead be clamored and even sent to prison? Please, you have your mind.
He cut the hands of people.
Please,
those people are suffering.
Please, Mr. Kedia, if you have a political I said, and honestly, your own hand was not cut. And so one of the things we are saying here is that when you support a particular political milieu, there is at times you lack the sense of honesty. And everybody that was claimed until it came out of the national media, it is a disgrace to some of us, which means that a media which every Cameroonian is paying becomes more impartial or becomes more partial. Then we should be capable of reporting facts as they are. Okay, Eric Tato, let me not make it clear that the Cameroonian press and even social media should stop propagating false news. Eric Tato was not taken to court because of the Anglophone separatist movement. He was taken to court because of a crime, loan fraud. And that is a United States crime.
Let me come in here, Dr. Ako John Ako, in the affidavit which was submitted.
Hi, greetings my fellow Ambazonians. I salute everybody. My name is Tapang Ivo. Tanku, I come again for Cambrok this particular breaking news. Great news, sweet news, pepper news is sweet past Alagata Pepe. Now, Salah Emmanuel, this quack one at the same on a screen, and his sister, this woman, Salah also, you direct one mommy, one papa, sister. That means they born them as they born you, so the next year they born Salah Emmanuel. This woman for on a screen, and this brother, now all in Salah family. Their papa been a thief man for Cameroon, state thief, a very ugly fellow, Salah Christopher. May he rest in pieces. Their papa been a thief man for Cameroon. He ruined people their futures. People they like he ruined their futures. Now they are picking where they sponsor them. They come United States of America. They still continue the thief for this United States. Now, if you see at the right hand for my screen, there is a story. And this particular story, they show you, say, Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million pandemic fraud. pandemic fraud, Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million pandemic fraud. I go read this particular story one at the same on the side of una screen for expose the gangster regime and his cohorts. They are picking them. They always favor their papa them. No, they favor their papa. No me, they favor their papa. For thief, yes, they favor papa. For face, yes. For everything, they favor papa. Make a break down this story so that make una for Ambazonia una get revolutionary orgasm. Why? Because this idiot wait for screen. It don't report some of we for all kind bureaus of investigation. Lie about we for court. So that I win them. I don't win them tire so that they pay me $12,000. Say make I take and compensate myself with them. From this Salah Emmanuel one at the same on the screen, I be winning for court for America. And as God go do a thing, God don't expose the hunter. That means the hunter becomes the haunted. Now, make I maximize my screen and read on this particular story where it be very good news. But before then, make I take out this idiots, their picture them for my corner screen and maximize and show on the story. Now, when I see this thing come up from the United States Attorney's Office, that means a big lawyer for United States, the major, the like Attorney General for Cameroun of Ambazonia. Read the story. Ashburn woman convicted of 2.5 million fraud pandemic. And this is the real story. As we read, we go down. A federal jury convicted an Ashburn woman today on charges of conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. According to the court records and evidence presented at trial, Rose Marie Nsalai, 47, and her husband fraudulently obtained 2 Paycheck Protection Program PPP loans. The PPP was a program instituted by the United States Congress to help businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to pay salaries or wages to their employees. Salai carried out the scheme in connection with 2 of her husband's businesses by creating fraudulent payroll documentation for each business and then submitting that documentation in support of the PPP loan applications. The fraudulent documentation presented that her husband's businesses had dozens of employees with over 17 million US dollars of annual payroll in 2019, when in fact they had few, if any, employees. In total, Zalai and her husband fraudulently obtained approximately $2.5 million in loan proceeds, and they then spent those funds on items unrelated to any legitimate PPP related expense. Those items included the down payment on a 7,000 square foot home in Leesburg, Virginia. Salai's husband pleaded guilty to the scheme in 2021. I want to see him, they don't hyperlink him, and I go open now when I go see him. Salai faces a maximum of about 30 years in prison. Ambazonians, this is real news. Now, this is this woman called Salai Rose Marie. And yeah, your husband, last year, the husband, when I see him, 2021, that was about 2 years ago. Thursday, January 28, 2021, the husband 2 years ago was also on the trial, the docket. He pled guilty to the $2.5 million coronavirus fraud. Now, when I see the husband in name, Didier Kindambo, where the show saying actually La Republique. That means La Republique, they married La Republique, and La Republique, they like have a thief. I never see me family with a thief, so no me. I never see him before. Thief family, when I see exactly the fraud, and these are the people people who claim to have a reputation or even some credibility to report Ambazonians in courts in the United States. Now, I hope the FBI and all those departments. Yeah, greetings, my fellow Ambazonians. My name is Tapang Ivo Tanku. I am here with the breaking news. The family of Salah Emmanuel will be languishing for 30 good years in the federal prison in the United States of America. Let me give you the breaking news and the good news. This woman called Rosemary Salah, the blood sister, one mommy, one papa of Salah Emmanuel, the quack of Salah Emmanuel, whom I won in federal court, of Salah Emmanuel, whom the federal judges ordered to pay me $12,000 for leveling frivolous charges against my personality. Salah Emmanuel, who is the son of a state thief, whose father was a thief, an ugly thief, running the Cameroun government. Salah's family in the United States will be languishing for the next 30 years because the sister and her husband have been sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for conducting fraud under the watchful eyes of Joe Biden, under the watchful eyes of the entire Americans, under the watchful eyes of Donald Trump. Let me read the story from the Attorney General's office, United States Attorney's Office, Eastern District of Virginia. This is publicly accessible information. A federal jury convicted an Ashburn woman today on charges of conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. According to court records and evidence presented at trial, Rosemary Salah, 47, and her husband fraudulently obtained 2 Paycheck Protection Program (PPP) loans. The PPP was a program instituted by the United States Congress to help businesses affected by the coronavirus pandemic continue to pay salaries or wages to their employees. Salah carried out the scheme in connection with 2 of her husband's businesses by creating fraudulent payroll documentation for each business and then submitting the documentation in support of the PPP loan applications. The fraudulent documentation represented that her husband's businesses had dozens of employees with over 17 million of annual payroll in 2019, when in fact they had few, if any, employees. In total, Salah and her husband fraudulently obtained approximately $2.5 million in loan proceeds and then spent those funds on items unrelated to any legitimate PPP-related expenses. Those items included the down payment on a 7,000 square foot home in Leesburg, Virginia. Salah's husband pleaded guilty to the scheme in 2021. Salah faces a maximum penalty of up to 30 years in prison when sentenced on July 19 this year. Actual sentences for federal crimes are typically less than the maximum penalties. The federal district court judge will determine any sentence after taking into account the U.S. sentencing guidelines and other statutory factors. My name is Tapang Ivo Tanku, and do have a pleasant day as we've exposed these state thieves from Cameroon hiding and residing in the United States of America.
But one for assure Ambazonians them say this case no be an indictment.